Ladies and gentlemen, sloppy viewers, you've probably seen the most recent situation with Parlo and Pyrocynical unfold over the past couple of months, but have you seen all of it? Because in today's video, we're extensively going over the entire situation in compilation form. So, if you're new here, put this video on and learn about the situation. If you already know, put this on for some background noise while you study. But without further ado, let's dive into this chaotic situation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so the Roblox commentary YouTuber Parlo has recently found himself in a bit of hot water. And if you know of Parlo, probably not for the reasons that you're thinking. If you don't know, for a little while now, Parlo's been wanting to expose the commentary YouTuber Pyrocynical. Parlo's whole thing in relation to Pyrocynical is to do with the allegations and situations that have been levied at Pyrocynical. I'm making a massive video on Pyrocynical, not only proving how he lied to everyone in his response video, but also how he got away with sending to a 16-year-old boy, which he knew his date of birth and age. It was a 4-year age gap. Pyro is 20, this is legal. He texted this boy up until he was 17 in 2018. Pyrocynical was 21. Pyro also dated a 14-year-old when he was 18 and was planning to initiate a proper relationship with her when she was 16. Waiting for a child to become legal is indicative of grooming. This will be a very large video, much larger than my others before, so stay tuned. I'm correcting the record. I mean, stating you're going to set the record on any situation, let alone the Pyrocynical situation, is, a pretty risky move. Because lots of things can genuinely go wrong, especially when you're Parlo covering this situation. And I genuinely say, especially Parlo covering this situation, because Parlo's got a pretty bad reputation. The guy pretty much has a mental breakdown every other week at this point. He's not very mentally stable, so trying to trust him to deal with a situation like this, it's just not happening. And the issue is with having a reputation like that is a lot of people, including content creators, the same content creators you need to push this situation out there, will take one look that Parlo's name is attached to this document and video or whatever, and just kind of brush it off because it's Parlo. Why would you look at that when he's got such a bad reputation? Another issue, kind of in the same vein, is that publicly he's been fighting with Pyro fans over the situation for quite some time on Reddit and Twitter, which again has built him quite a, a bad reputation in that community, the community that he needs to change the opinion of. So he's kind of stacked the deck against himself. It's not just that he's arguing with these people, right? Because they're of course going to push back when, they're hearing that their favorite content creator is getting called out by, another YouTuber, but he's just acting irresponsibly with it, especially when he wants people and those people to take his document and video seriously. So, arguing with them and being irresponsible like that and being immature probably isn't the best way to go about this situation. Another problem with all of this as well is, like I've said previously, is Parlo's a pretty mentally unstable guy who's had several mental breakdowns very, very, very publicly. I mean, only recently there was a big situation with his dad where he got locked out of his own YouTube account and his dad blackmailed him, and all of this was very, very public. And of course, there's lots of history between Parlo and his dad, right? There's a lot of story to go into there, but having that type of public perception isn't good when you're trying to deal with a situation like the Pyro case when the deck is already stacked against you with his audience and with the narrative that was already created around that situation. So realistically, you need someone who is a bit more mentally stable and doesn't have this reputation. Because of Parlo's reputation, how he's a decisive figure, all the mental breakdowns, a lot of people are already casting doubt on this document and video before they've even seen it and before it's even out. I mean, I even did. I said that, the likelihood of him having a mental breakdown if this goes wrong and, this document being bad is pretty high. And I made a significant amount of tweets about the Parlo situation, or enough to, get in a news article about it, to the point where Parlo reached out to me and we had a conversation about the whole situation. And for full transparency, when we were speaking, he did show me bits of what he was working on. The large majority of what he was showing me was already uploaded on one of his second channels in a video.
Legally, age of consent is 16 in both my country and his state.
And quickly, while I'm on the subject of that video, I don't know why he put that video out in the first place when he's already making a document and another video and has said that, this was a poorly made thing. I just don't know why you'd risk it. And I do genuinely think something like this is pretty intriguing and pretty interesting. It seems like Parlo is trying to put a lot of research into it, but because of who he is, how he goes about things, I am genuinely pretty worried about how this will go down. And as Nicholas Diorio, a fellow commentary YouTuber, asked him, why are you doing this? And this was Parlo's response. I couldn't fit everything here, but this is my stance on it all. I understand that a lot of people are disinterested in what I have to say because of the reputation I have built for myself and for the fact I'm a Roblox YouTuber out of my lane. But this situation is something that I've been digging into regarding for months to even years, and Pyrocynical did essentially get away with extremely reprehensible actions, and the commentary community in Turkey Tom unfairly treated, despite them actually having a case against him. I really don't mind any other other creator covering the situation, and I in fact really encourage it if they feel comfortable or interested to, as I hope when the topic is reintroduced it opens up a lot more eyes to Pyrocynical's depravity. I don't want to take credit for myself, all I want is for people to stop gaslighting themselves about Pyrocynical being somehow innocent. Many people didn't even watch his original response video where he admitted to continuing to with Ivory once learning of his age. I know a lot of commentary YouTubers are discontent with how Pyrocynical got away with it, so that's my take. I've seen a consistent pattern of Pyrocynical allegedly behaving inappropriately with minors. The French girl situation was just a tip of the iceberg. I mean, I can't fault Parlo here, it does genuinely seem like he cares about the situation, right? It doesn't just feel like he's stirring up for no reason. It does feel like, you know, this is something that he's clearly like obsessed with. But such a situation is incredibly delicate, and putting a time frame like he has been with this video, trying to say that, you know, this is going to be out in a few weeks, teasing and stuff like this, probably isn't the way to go about it, right? This situation will take time. There's a lot of stuff that you have to make sure is correct for people to take this genuinely seriously and not just rip you to shreds, especially because, like I've said throughout this video, the deck is already heavily stacked against Parlo. We'll be making a 40-minute to 1 hour video comprehensively proving Pyrocynical's guilt. The document will be about 100 pages long and systematically debunks Pyrocynical's response. He's the only YouTuber who's ever got away with with a 16-year-old when he was 20. The issue with saying something like that is the fact that now he said that this will systematically do this, it will do that, it will debunk this, it has to do that, otherwise he's going to get ripped to shreds and will be mocked. That's the problem with saying stuff like this publicly. The best thing to do is probably to shut up about it and just release the document and video when you're ready. Doing all of this before, arguing with people, making these promises, you know, talking about it to this extent, probably isn't going to help Parlo if this backfires massively. Which really kind of doesn't help with his reputation of being a more reckless figure. He was never innocent, and this community has deluded itself into thinking he debunked the allegations. Pyrocynical is a pathological liar and has numerous instances of him messaging other minors. Stay tuned. Lamau, the r// Pyrocynical subreddit is a horrible subreddit which needs to be taken down. There are so many smaller creators for coming out about Pyrocynical, and it's no surprise they are lying about me now. Constantly going backwards and forwards with Pyro subreddit when realistically you should be working on the document or video just isn't a good look, regardless of how good this video or document could possibly be. Now, Parlo at the time of recording of this video just put out another tweet which goes along with what I've been saying about him making definitive statements like this will debunk this will do this will do that before releasing the document itself. Pyrocynical, the YouTuber, got away with it. The video will come out in the next 2 weeks. It will comprehensively reopen cases of Pyrocynical behaving inappropriately around minors he knew the age of, and correcting the lies which are being spread unmitigated and unchallenged. And after all the things he said about this video, it better be a really good video, especially because the majority of the people will more likely look at the video than read the document. The document is more for content creators and streamers, and people genuinely really interested in the situation. The video is going to appeal to more audience members who, you know, just are curious about the situation and want to see what Parlo has to say. They're more likely to look at that than read the 100-page document, so, you know, it better be a good video which actually proves the things that he's been talking about. The handling of a situation like this is incredibly important, and so far how Parlo has acted and been responding to people just isn't the way that you should be responding to people when you're trying to tackle a situation as, you know, big as this. And Parlo recently dropped a reply to a tweet which kind of sums up my worries to do with this whole situation. Toxic is a trigger response to the environment I'm predisposed to in regards to me facing all the Pyrocynical fans. I'm just assumed you're a Pyro fan when you claimed I was only in it for the fame. Fighting with every single Pyrocynical fan on his subreddit on Twitter isn't going to prove anything. What's going to prove something, if there's genuinely, you know, a lot there, is the YouTube video, and that's something that you need to put out instead of, you know, arguing with every single Pyro fan. That's not going to get you anywhere. I've said stuff online and around like the likelihood of this video and document being bad is, you know, pretty high, and, you know, the likelihood of him having a mental breakdown, if that's the case and he gets backlash, is also, you know, incredibly high. But of course, the video hasn't come out yet. We've got to wait to see the video, the reaction, how he deals with it, how he actually deals with the situation as a whole when it all drops. I'm interested to see what's going to happen. You never know, Parlo might surprise everyone, and his document is incredibly good, and his YouTube video is also incredibly good, but we've just got to wait and see. Just the lighter pyro stuff to really get you in the Pyrocynical commentary slob mood, because now we are moving on to the Parlo stuff, you know, the thing that all of you want to hear about. And I've got to say, firstly, the video I made 2 months ago has aged like absolute fine wine. I've been proven correct in a point that particularly I didn't want to be proven right in. I made a point about 2 months ago now that the Parlo Pyrocynical stuff and Parlo's attempt at making a document and video on Pyro would only be overshadowed by Parlo's own content. controversies. And a point that went hand in hand here is that Parlo has to stop arguing with Pyro's community, and more importantly, Pyro's subreddit community. It was overshadow what Parlo was actually trying to do. It would create more controversy, it would also show that Parlo is more pathetic than people thought, and it would just be bad in general, and unfortunately these points have been proven correct. Pyrocynical's community, or Reddit more importantly, ended up throwing accusations towards Parlo that he had to respond to and try to dismiss in a video on his channel. The subreddit r/YouTube drama known for defending Pyrocynical and him a 16-year-old minor he knew the age of is now openly lying about me claiming to have CSAM when it was screenshots included from a 60-minute Australian news video and nothing was shown. The lies continue. They used the dupe situation to deflect away from Pyro's history of known predatory activity around minors, in which they are actively covering up before the document is released. The subreddit is also known for defaming countless other YouTubers, and their credibility is tainted. Lamau, the quote-unquote video evidence Pyro fans and Dupe are using against me, showed numerous times how Dupe lied about his job occupation and lied about being 17, referring to how he was above the age of 16. Those who slander me are going to be fucked. Stay tuned for my response video, which I will now be playing a clip of.
These people have spread unsubstantiated accusations against me and pushed flat-out false claims that I am some sort of with baseless evidence, and today I wish to debunk the allegations and prove these people to be compulsive liars.
I'm going to interject here and just say a few things before allowing the rest of the clip to play, because ultimately Parlo's own controversy, whether it's false, whether it's true, or whatever, has caused this situation to be overshadowed massively. This is something that I was genuinely worried about, that Parlo's own history would end up overshadowing what he was trying to do with Pyro by exposing him. And by attacking Pyro's subreddit consistently responding to them instead of just focusing on the document and releasing it, instead of, consistently hyping up, has allowed all of this to overshadow the Pyro situation. Parlo shouldn't have been beefing with the Pyrocynical subreddit to begin with in the first place. He shouldn't have been hyping up this document and video like it was Avengers Endgame. He should have just released it when it was ready and said nothing and continued on with his day. But instead, he decided to do the complete opposite. And of course, he has to respond to his allegations. That is completely understandable, but he shouldn't have put himself in the position in the first place where he was beefing with the people in the Reddit.
Now, the first situation to cover came from Pyrocynical's subreddit r/Pyrocynical, where a user named Dupe had been proven to have used an account called OKChannel9175. Now, Dupe essentially made a post under this account name that I dated him when he was and I was 19 years of age, heavily alluding to the fact that I knew his age and yet continued nonetheless, which is simply untrue. These claims started to be spread like wildfire in the subreddit, with it culminating over 3,000 upvotes, with people slandering me as some sort of...
If you do want to know more about this situation, I highly recommend that you go and watch Parlo's response video titled The Truth. It gives a good insight into what's going on there, so yeah, I highly recommend that you go and watch that. Ultimately, when it does come down to this Pyro allegations and this document and video being overshadowed, I was correct. My worry was that by Parlo being the one to do this, that ultimately his own history, his own past would be coming up a lot. People would use it as ammunition against him, which has been happening in all different ways, shape and forms, and that by Parlo consistently beefing with these people on the Reddit, it would only cause more issues for him and the situation as a whole. Pyrocynical fans have some really good defenses. It was years ago, bro. You're clout hungry, brings up the domestic abuse I faced, deflects with a debunked document. Dude, they do a terrible job of proving Pyro's innocence. Wait until the video starts dropping. Ivory never lied about his age, and Pyro even said this, and Pyro then admitted in 9/22 in his response video that he knew Ivory was 16 and continued to with him and send him while he was 20. I love how you just self-reported that you have no idea what you're talking about. Ultimately, Parlo shouldn't have been hyping this video up. He should have dropped the document and video when he was ready to do so, which would have avoided all of this controversy. Because ultimately as well, we're almost 2 months out from my original video going over the Parlo Pyro stuff, and look, we still don't have a document and video, and people are asking why. People are confused. People are very confused with the Parlo drama. It's a complete and utter mess, and that's down to Parlo's handling of the situation. Everyone, the biggest response I have ever made will be released tomorrow. Then after I've proved Pyrocynical subreddit to be paedophile defending liars, I'm coming for you, Pyrocynical, and I'll make sure by next month everyone knows you are a predator. Stay tuned, I'm going to fuck shit up. If I go down, Niall goes down with me. Hate to break it to you, bro, but you're not John Wick. People aren't scared of you. Just drop the document and video when you're ready. Stop hyping up, stop talking about it, just drop it when it's ready, like a normal individual would. The thing is with hyping it up is I understand the basic concept of why he would want to hype it up, right? Get it attention,
whatever. But why wouldn't you do that when you know your document and video are finished? Why wouldn't you start doing that maybe the week before or a couple of days before, building up a bit of hype, building up a bit of suspense right before you drop it, because you know that it's ready? By doing this before you even know if the document's ready or the video's ready or finished, then you just create this whole issue of people waiting for 2 months, being confused, and your own controversies being weaponized against you. Also, as well, the thing with hyping this up massively for the past 2 months is that if this is a catastrophic failure, if this document is shit, if Parlo's video, more importantly, is diabolically bad, then this will have aged awfully. This will only be used against him further. Video script for the Pyrocynical video is being worked on. When it has concluded, editing will take a while. The video is part 1 and it's 40 minutes long. The document is the final stages of being made. A few more segments need to be finished. The doc is 50,000 words and 330 pages. Genuinely confused when Parlo says about part 1 of this. Does this mean that he's going to drop part 1 of his Pyro Expose and then we're going to have to wait another 6 months for part 2? Because ultimately what he should be doing, if he is doing this in parts, is he should do part 1 that's on a Wednesday, part 2 on a Thursday, part 3 on a Friday, and drop the document with the first video. That's ultimately what he should be doing. Part 1 of the Pyrocynical files will be out soon. It'll be well over an hour long and hard-hitting and more comprehensive than any video made before. It will focus on dismantling his arguments and proving him to be a liar. Part 2 and part 3 will both be an hour long too. Due to how much is in the document, I've decided to split into several videos. The first video focuses on debunking the critical points he made in his response video and will be over an hour long. It goes in depth on the private conversations that Ivory and Pyrocynical had after Pyrocynical admitted that he knew Ivory when he was 16 while he was 20. Despite Pyrocynical systematically purging his messages to try and hide his complacency, these messages have not been properly shown until now. It will debunk the defenses he made in regards to not knowing Ivory's age when he was 15 and prove that he must have known Ivory was a minor long before he claimed. This video will prove the French girl was real and that Pyrocynical did date her, show comprehensive proof of her age was public information when she operated whatever Twitter account, and show messages Pyrocynical made in reference to waiting for her to turn the UK age of consent 16 before engaging with her in a proper relationship when he would have been 20, which is indicative of grooming. They had a 4-year, 2-month age gap. Many of the points made in the video have not been highlighted before and comprehensively proves Pyrocynical to be a liar. It is important to focus on Pyrocynical being a liar and a manipulator before part 2 and part 3 and any other possible follow-ups come out. Dismantling any defense he has is necessary. I implore anyone who knows more victims to reach out to me. The follow-up videos will highlight the new information and minors who have publicly come out alleging what Pyro has done to them. The videos will highlight Pyrocynical's close associates who've covered up for his actions, been associated with who have engaged inappropriately with minors themselves. Both part 2 and part 3 will be over an hour long, and part 2 will be harder hitting than part 1. I'm going to say what I said about 2 months ago, and I'm going to say what I've been saying throughout this video. Stop hyping up, stop explaining it, and just drop the document and video when you are ready. Explain about part 1 and part 2 and part 3 or whatever in your video or in a tweet when you drop part 1. Why are you still talking about this when your video and document aren't even finished yet? Important news, the Pyrocynical video script is about 15,000 to 20,000 words. That means the video will be about 2 hours long. One may argue that I can just condense it, but in order for people to take the situation seriously and understand the gravity of the situation, everything needs to be covered. Plus, this is just going over the French girl 14, Ivory 15, Add to 17, and Spoopy 15, and Ida 16 to 17. There are far more minors to discuss in part 2 and part 3. Sorry for the video will stay as long as it needs to. I'm sure it won't be 2 hours. Video script is near completion, and I have to voice over it in the coming days and give it to my editor, in which it will take them 7 to 10 days to edit. But the video will be as long as it needs to be. I would rather have a video that is longer, that actively goes over the situation properly, dives into it, explains it properly, than a rush 15-minute video that just hits the bullet points of the situation. I think the only problem with it being maybe possibly 2 hours long is the fact that the casual viewer probably won't watch that full 2 hours, and it'll probably take them a long time to get through. Important, videos have been slow because I've been preparing the Pyrocynical script. Now it's finally done and the document is 98% completed. It'll be voiced over today or tomorrow and given to an editor who has 10 days to edit it. Another person is working on the intro. The video is an hour and a half hours, and it's going to flip the entire Pyrocynical drama on its head. He was never innocent and never will be. It's the biggest video I've ever made, and the stakes are the highest it's ever been. It's the first video of a trilogy to come out. Each following video will be over an hour. Now, this message was sent 4 days ago in Parlo's server, and if Parlo is to be believed, then this document and video should be coming out very, very soon. Look, I hope for Parlo's sake that this video is good, because people already have preconceived thoughts about this, not only because he's been hyping up for the past 2 months, but because it is Parlo, and his history has led people to doubt how good this video will be. So we will see, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, and of course, I will be be covering it when it does release. Now, I do want to quickly mention something that is a bit up in the air at the moment that I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think it is worth mentioning here, just because as well, I want to ask if you have any questions that you want me to ask, but there is a possibility that I might be getting an interview with Parlo about this.
A lot of people talking about the document.
Ladies and gentlemen, the long-awaited Parlo Pyrocynical document has recently released. The document at hand created by Parlo is over 300 pages long. Everything in these 300 pages is directly related to Pyrocynical. Some is about other content creators that are connected to Pyro. We will briefly mention these before moving on, as today's focus is on Pyrocynical, but I highly urge that you, the viewer, go and check out this document and take a look at those sections and the whole document for yourself. The document starts with a prologue of the things that will be involved in the document before slowly moving on to Ivory. Anybody who knows anything about Pyrocynical and is watching this video or has even seen Pyrocynical's original response will know who Ivory is. In the Ivory section of this document, Parlo points out inconsistencies from Pyrocynical during this situation and breaks down significantly not only their age gap but messages and just flat out lies. I don't necessarily want to rush over Parlo's Ivory section, as Parlo extensively breaks down the situation, goes over individual screenshots taken from videos, going over these messages extensively, breaking them down. What particularly interests me with this document isn't the rehashing and re-looking at previous situations like the Ivory situation, it's the case of new situations that I personally want to dive into for this video. But for the sake of this document, and because I don't want to dismiss it, I will be taking a look at the conclusion of the Ivory section and reading them to you. Again, this document is publicly out there. I highly recommend that if you are interested specifically in the Ivory section and previous stuff that's come out about Pyrocynical, to go and take a look at the beginning section of this document that extensively breaks it down. And if you are somebody that doesn't like reading documents or will struggle to read this document, and especially the stuff about Ivory, well, you're in luck, because Parlo is releasing a video extensively going over this in a long video format. Parlo spoke about this when he went on Quinthio's stream.
Of the hour and 50-minute video on the Pyrocynical situation, I oversaw half of it. He's editing the current last half. The document is so large in terms of information that I had originally planned to cut it up into 3 parts. What I'm very much hoping, this document gets big enough in the Twitter community where it starts, other victims feel comfortable to come out and more information will start, being drip fed, so I can build up more and more of a case. The document stands well on its 2 feet currently, but I know very much that Pyrocynical has more victims. So there's a video being made, but it focuses on dismantling his response video, because I feel he doesn't have any ground to stand on once people know that this guy is a habitual liar.
There we have it there, but I do want to quickly read the conclusion of the Ivory section. Conclusion regarding Ivory. Pyrocynical managed to utilize wordplay manipulation to drastically play down his dynamic with Ivory. He affirms that because there was no sexual interest and no nudes exchanged, suddenly that means the dynamic was any less bad. He very maliciously does not decide to specifically go over all the messages with Ivory because it would paint a much more nefarious picture, and he ultimately neglects to mention how he allowed Ivory to discuss his life when he was 15 while he was complicit in the discussion. He requested furry fetish from Ivory, consistently sent to Ivory, erotically roleplay with Ivory, playing into his sexual fantasies, and also planned to commission furry fetish art of their sonars and even NSFW commissions. Pyrocynical was supportive of the idea of meeting up with Ivory in December 2017 when he would have been 16. Noah was perfectly fine with the idea of meeting up with a minor when he knew the age of, while he was 20 years old. The same minor he was seen consistently engaging in private. The idea that age consent laws can justify this dynamic is completely false too. To minors in the state of Pennsylvania is illegal, regardless or if they are above the legal age of consent, and morally, a 4-year age gap between an adult and minor is abhorrent and predatory. Ivory never lied about his age to Pyrocynical, and never met Pyrocynical in an 18+ Discord server. Pyrocynical had literally no information to go off that Ivory was an adult. In fact, there is a lot more information to allude to the fact that he most likely could have known Ivory was a minor. No logical adult would have continued to sex someone they didn't know the age of. The person stated they weren't to school consistently, stated they couldn't get presents because their mother was restricting what they could get until school year is over, and certainly beyond all reasonable doubt, anyone who didn't know the age of the person they were sexting would immediately cut someone off if they specifically stated they couldn't be allowed into an 18+ venue and would need a fake ID to get in. Next section tackles Ida and goes over the recent controversy involving Ida and scamming people. Parlo doesn't only talk about Ida's most recent situation that blew up on Pyrocynical's Reddit involving her scamming people, but as well moves over to previous stuff to do with Ivory. Said previously, Firstly, this document kind of fleshes out Pyrocynical and Pyrocynical's associates and situations. It isn't just solely focused on Pyrocynical's actions, but the people around them and fulfilling those situations. Pyrocynical allegedly commissioned Ida when she was a minor. As it was specified earlier in this document, there was reasonable belief behind the fact that Pyrocynical had relied on Ida to create furry fetish for him and commission this content for himself. Following the document then attaches some screenshots, messages, and links. Ida was born on March 19th, 2000, meaning that when these instances of art were uploaded, she was 17 years and 3 months old. Parlo then repeats himself and divulges more into this before then stating that Ida at a certain point during this time also would have been creating this content when they were 16. Time frame would match with the tweet Pyrocynical was seen making reference to Ida creating thick content on May 3rd, 2016, when Ida would have just turned 16, now would have been turning 19 in 11 days. There's a small section about Ida victim blaming Ivory, before moving over to the French girl situation and everything revolving around that, including stuff like Toastify's video.
Remember, how old you were, how old he was?
So I met Pyro back in 2015 when I was 14 years old and he was 18 years old. I was a fan artist for him and his group of friends, so all these YouTubers in the community he was in. I drew him a lot because, well, he was my favorite of them all. To show me his support, he followed me, and so later on I thanked him and talked to him in DMs, and that's how we became friends.
So you guys, became friends. You were making art for him. Were you making, I think...
Regarding the victims, many victims of Pyrocynical are afraid to come out about the abuse they have faced due to a plethora of reasons, mainly the fact that Niall's fanbase have brutally harassed, lied and defamed Ivory after his initial allegations, victim blaming him and discrediting his story, which has dissuaded many other minors coming out about their own situation. Some affected simply left the internet and continued on with life, putting their experiences with Niall behind them, in the case of Trippy Fox. Others lost a lot of evidence due to time, as there was a golden rule against leaking private and personal DMs. The action of doing so was often frowned upon, additionally due to Skype having wiped old messages. It is oftentimes very hard to retrieve old messages, especially on Discord. As well, accounts being banned. This is also further complicated by Niall having decided to use the Discord messaging purging scripts to mass wipe messages with numerous individuals too, one such example being with Ivory. Popular Twitter furry Leo references a user named Abortion ASMR who came out alleging the Pyrocynical sent furry and SFW to them and discussed fetishes with them while they were 15 and he was 19. This call-out was made in December 2019. Leah is then seen stating that a friend of theirs told them the Pyrocynical allegedly tried to commission them to make furry NSFW fetish art for them, but was ignored, causing Niall to allegedly clear all chat logs. The idea of Niall clearing chat logs is something seen in many similar situations. The document then speaks about other people's experiences with Pyrocynical and takes a deep dive into that, with one of these individuals being named Pink. On January 20th, 2023, Pink had come out claiming they were allegedly taken advantage of and groomed by Pyrocynical when they were 15 to 16, and the Pyrocynical had actively engaged in activities and he discussed sexual fetishes with them. They go on to establish that Pyrocynical allegedly absolutely knew their age and that they spoke about it on Discord calls numerous times. They stated how they never came out about it sooner because they never realized the severity of it until they grew up and that they thought the interactions were normal. They state that they don't have the screenshots and the Pyrocynical's Discord account has been long deleted, followed by them stating that they would be taking down their account shortly after. They had over 1,000 followers and years of tweet history. However, after making this tweet, they are deactivated permanently. But then goes into more detail about this anonymous individual. The rest of Parlo's document against Pyrocynical features other accusations against Pyro. The following accusations I'm about to read out are featured in Parlo's document against Pyrocynical. Situation with somebody called Justin-Ursel, a 16-year-old minor. Abortion ASMR, another person who would come out detailing their alleged experience with Niall, was a user named Abortion ASMR who claimed that when they were 15, they engaged in sexual messages in regards to furry when he was 19. Keep in mind these allegations came out 11 months before Ivory's initial call-out tweet in November 2020. This tweet was eventually removed by the original poster as she was harassed by Pyrocynical fans who called her a clout chaser and attempted to invalidate and discredit her experiences. EO, 14-year-old. While not as much proof is openly available as the aforementioned situations, the case of Leo is rather concerning. This segment will touch on the allegations that Pyrocynical allegedly commissioned a 14-year-old boy to create fetishistic and content in private for him. This was attested by numerous people well versed in the community at the time at all different instances, which makes the matter rather important to highlight. However, take these allegations in a level of a headed manner. What is being alleged are from numerous witnesses' testimonies. Pyrocynical was to a 15-year-old. In November 2016, a user named Cat with a Mag made a tweet showing private Twitter messages with Pyrocynical in 2015, showing how allegedly Pyrocynical had sent them of Foxy and Chica from FNAF, with Foxy sitting on Chica's face. Even allegedly, Pyrocynical acknowledges in these exchanges that it is inherently by referencing the image as Foxy Ass image. Pyrocynical sent to another 15-year-old, Trippy Fox. Trippy Fox was a relatively small commentary orbiter, being friends with Pyrocynical and being associated in his friend circle for many years. He was associated with Solid Shibe, Scythe Morton and others. Pyrocynical got a 15-year-old girl to make fetish art. This allegation has been proven to be true. Pyrocynical admitted that he engaged with this minor in his response video. For context, 2016, an artist on Instagram known as Spoopy Scary Aliens, aka Ronnie, made fan art for large YouTubers at the time, such as Leafy is Here, Jacksepticeye and Markiplier. They also made many art pieces for Pyrocynical. They openly made it no secret that they were underage and went to school. Pyrocynical was sending fetish content to a 16-year-old Ken. Ken was at the time 16, turning 17 years old, furry artist who sometimes created content. They were someone involved in friend circles around Ivory and were openly flirtatious with YouTuber Quiet at the time. Saku, a 15-year-old. After these accusations against Pyrocynical, Parlo then moves on to speak about other things like associates like Scythe who have connections to these situations and other things. Conclusion: where the ability is available, Pyrocynical will sure take any option that gives him the benefit of the doubt, even if that means flat out lying, unless he is pushed on his stance with new evidence and public opinion starts breaking against him, to which he will then seem gradually admitting more and more, only to the point where he is still able to path to weasel his way out of the situation. Even if we were to be extremely charitable, Niall cannot continuously use the "I didn't know the age" excuse, especially when he used it in reference to Ivory, and it was more probable than not he knew that Ivory was probably a minor long before Ivory ever sent a link to his Twitter with his age present in his bio. Yet because there is no conclusive evidence of Ivory stating his age, took the only route available: ignorance. Pyrocynical just didn't expect that someone would comprehensively go over the numerous red flags and instances of Ivory heavily alluding to the fact that he was a minor, which directly starts to break down his response. He has unfortunately up until now been able to consistently play off this as a joke to avoid accountability because his fan base don't see how immoral this behaviour actually is. There is an undeniable pattern of hyenas who Pyrocynical has been proven to be in contact with or mutuals with, coming out over the years accusing him of inappropriate conduct. However, people will continue to consistently make excuses and play down the situation instead of processing that clearly some malicious pattern of behaviour is being unravelled here. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is a recap of the most important things in this document, going over it, telling you, the viewers, what you can expect in this document, and going over the most important details. So now I highly recommend that if you haven't already, go and check out this document and the sections that you most want to go and look into. But as well, I would like to issue, like I have previously when covering the situation, some critiques towards Parlo. His handling of the situation by hyping this document up and then beefing with Pyrocynical fans and people who disagree with him for months has severely damaged the reputation of this document. His name severely damaged the reputation of this document, and how he went about it also did as well. This is something that he evidently realized midway through because he then dropped this on a burner account, but by that point it was way too late because everybody knew that this was associated with Parlo. The damage of how he'd gone about this was already done. As well, the fact that he failed to drop his actual video on this situation at the same time as the document has heavily stunted this document and the reach that it could potentially have. Not only this as well, but the document itself is incredibly over repetitive, which is to hammer home points, but trying to get through it because of this is an absolute slugfest.
I can already see in chat there are a lot of people talking about the document.
Since this document has released, Pyrocynical has briefly addressed this on stream, and before we wrap up this video, I would like to go over this.
That got made on me. I don't want to like stream and act like, you know, nothing's happening. So obviously, if you've seen on Twitter, there is a Google Doc that's been made on me. And it was posted on a burner. We know who posted it. We know who posted it. Like, you can literally go into the hidden replies of that burner account, and you can immediately see they're hiding replies criticizing a certain YouTuber.
Like I said, posting it on some form of burner, although it might have been to protect Parlo's account or whatever the reason may be, was stupid. Because everybody already knows that this is Parlo that has done this document. He's been hyping it up for months.
So, but the problem is, with this Google document, because a video wasn't made, and it was a document, I basically need to treat this like how I treated the original response video. Because I was waiting for this document to come out. It was hyped up for like 6 months or something like that. And now it's out. Thank God. Like, oh God. Like, I'm so happy that document's out, because Jesus, that was just hyped up forever.
I think it's very apparent that this is something that has been playing on Pyrocynical's mind for ages. The language used here, how he's acting in this situation, makes it very apparent that this is something that made him paranoid and made him extremely worried. But regardless of that, I will always still say that Parlo hyping it up like it was some big next Marvel Avengers film was the most ludicrous thing he could have possibly done in his position.
But the point I'm trying to make is, I can't just go ahead and respond to it now. I need to now wait for all the YouTubers and everyone to jump in and have their say and say their piece about it. And then I need to respond to it.
Pyrocynical would be waiting to see what everybody else has to say about the situation, not only to weigh up how he would actively go about his response, but if he would need to respond at all. If everybody decides to dog on the document, then there is simply no point in him actively responding, and he can go about it in a completely different way. But if people agree with him and go against it, that levers him and pushes him up for his response. It allows Pyrocynical to flip-flop on his response, include things that would get people on his side if that is the avenue he needs to go down. Pyrocynical can then as well, if needed, take the common critiques of other streamers and YouTubers and then apply it in his own response to Parlo's document.
If I do. So it's just another waiting game, you know? And I got two choices now. I basically put my head under the sand and I stop working, and then my employees suffer because they can't get paid, you know? And I just like sit in my apartment gooning all day, or I just keep working until until it comes to that point. There's really not much else I could do in this situation apart from, just waiting for, every single YouTuber to come out. I mean, I did that with the original video. I remember in the original response video when YouTubers like had their say and stuff. And then I used that in my actual response video as well. So it's just like, it's a waiting game for this document to come out. And now it's another waiting game to see, like, for everyone to have their piece to say, basically.
So I find it fascinating that Pyrocynical has responded already in some capacity and actually mentioned the document. Not only because this document doesn't exactly have thousands upon thousands of likes, but as well the coverage hasn't really been as extensive. People haven't really gone over the document yet, so to see him jump like this and respond and immediately get this out there is an interesting move. But as well, this is also because he's a streamer, he can't exactly ignore a document like this.
So, until then, there's not really much I can do. Google Docky. Google Docky. Thank you, Yesaf. 301 pages is insane. I think that's the worst thing as well. Like, it was almost made like as bloated as possible. So when people see 300 pages, because let's be real, right? Everyone's attention span right now is fried. You got IG Reels, you got TikTok, you got YouTube Shorts. Very few people have the attention span to even watch a film without checking their phone. So most people see 300 pages, and then it's like, okay, he's guilty. Like that's it. There's like an insurmountable amount of evidence here. He's guilty. We've got him. So,
Now, whilst I believe that this document has lots of repetitive stuff and could honestly be trimmed down significantly, I don't believe this was done to make people take a look at the document and go, well, look how long it is, let's write it off, Pyrocynical is guilty. Parlo is somebody who just went very, very extensive with the document and repeated themselves to hammer home points. Parlo wants people to read this document, not turn away because of the length. That is why the video was being created in the first place, was to appeal to that more general audience.
Because I guarantee most people have not even read it in its entirety. But yeah, that's the last I'll say about it. I don't really want to speak about it again until I have to. But I did want to address it because, I don't want to be streaming here and then looking at chat. And then obviously, I'm seeing people mention it every 5 seconds. And it's like, oh, I can't talk about that. I'm kind of scared. Anyway, Reddit moment.
Whilst it's very clear that Pyrocynical is putting on this jokey front, I think it's very clear that this is something that he's increasingly worried about. He's worried about this document, and I'd be very interested to see how he approaches it going forward with his response and what happens in the situation next.
So obviously, if you've seen on Twitter, there is a Google Doc that's been made on me.
Ladies and gentlemen and sloppy viewers, in my last video covering this Pyrocynical document and situation, we covered the contents of the document and gave you a recap of what was in it. As well, in the last video, we covered a few critiques I had towards Parlo for the document, and as well, Pyrocynical's 4-minute response he had on his stream.
Google Docky. Google Docky.
In this response, Pyrocynical came off as an incredibly nervous and paranoid individual who had been waiting for this document for multiple months. But in this response, Pyrocynical was more concerned with making jokes about the situation, commenting on the fact that Parlo had released this under a burner account and tried to get a gotcha on him in that moment, and as well was being incredibly disingenuous when describing why the length of the document was so long.
And it was posted on a burner. We know who posted it. We know who posted it. Like, you can literally go into the hidden replies of that burner account, and you can immediately see they're hiding replies criticizing a certain YouTuber. So 101 pages is insane. I think that's the worst thing as well. Like, it was almost made like as bloated as possible. So when people see 300 pages, because let's be real, right? Everyone's attention span right now is fried. You got IG Reels, you got TikTok, you got YouTube Shorts. Very few people have the attention span to even watch a film without checking their phone. So most people see 300 pages, and then it's like, okay, he's guilty.
Pyrocynical in this response as well also gave his game plan away in terms of waiting for people to make their videos and cover the situation before responding.
But the point I'm trying to make is, I can't just go ahead and respond to it now. I need to now wait for all the YouTubers and everyone to jump in and have their say and say their piece about it. And then I need to respond to it.
No, there is no reason feasibly why he needs to wait for other people's coverage to get involved in this document and break it down. Unless Pyrocynical is actively going to be responding to the coverage of this document instead of the document itself, finding inconsistencies within the coverage, fuck-ups, to try and slither away and find cracks where he can avoid accountability and downplay it. Which is something he can do if he directly responds to the videos instead of responding directly to the document. Of course, this is all stuff that we covered in the previous video, but I wanted to give a brief recap, as in today's video, Parlo has added over 20 pages to his document, which includes a response to Pyrocynical's stream response. Which, before we do, I want to give a pretty valid critique towards Parlo here. I don't see a point in adding 20 more pages to this document or keep constantly adding things to this document consistently. He needs to work on his video, he needs to work on a condensed version of the document which isn't so repetitive and isn't so long for more generalized audiences. There is no point adding an extra 20 pages to this document at the end of it or randomly wherever else in the document, because nobody's going to be going back to check on that once they've read it. Also just makes the document longer and more of a mess. One of the first things I want to go over in regards to the additions to this document is the stuff that's been added about Ivory. Regarding Ivory, then a tweet attached from Ivory saying, I don't know if it needs to be said, but I don't know Parlo or anything, and I didn't participate in the document being made. Stated by Ivory, he did not participate in the editing of this document. Do not harass him, he has been through enough. Then attached is a thread from r/YouTube drama revolving Ivory's response to the document. Post reads, Ivory, one of Pyro's quote-unquote victims in Parlo's new dog exposes about him, claims on Twitter, not linking it or naming it, find it yourself, that he did not consent or participate in any shape or form to be part of his dog. Not only that, some people are concerned that the public Google Doc showcasing Ivory's actual Twitter could bring Ivory back into this drama when he clearly doesn't want anything to do with it, and potentially increase harassment from Pyro's fanbase. What do you think? Nothing burger or a shitty move by Parlo? It's an incredibly disingenuous retelling of what Ivory said. Ivory never said that they did not consent to being in this document, just the fact that they didn't work on this document or participate in the making of it. The document responds by saying to immediately discredit this point. Not once did Ivory ever publicly state he did not consent for this information to be covered. He simply stated that he did not participate in the creation of the document. The claim that it was made without his consent is false. Notice how this user also attempts to use quotations when referencing Ivory as a victim to dismiss his story, but also to minimize the context around the situation. This is specifically used to undermine Ivory and other victims' credibility. Then after clearing that up, the document starts to focus more on the commenters of r/YouTube drama and the user that posted it. The document then states a very close associate and trusted friend of Ivory was seen expressing their disgust in R's actions and has been over the course of many months. They were seen recently forwarding the document. Had this document made Ivory uncomfortable or any other victims in that regard or contain any untrue statements, they would have highlighted this and can always contact me. This is one of the additions which I think is a positive one. I think this is a good thing to to clear up, and I think this is a also good thing to put in the document regarding Ivory and clearing up any misinformation that is spreading around about this. But I also think this is something that could have just been a tweet rather than actually inserted into the document. Another thing that was added to the document over these new 20 pages was also a response to Pyrocynical's stream response. Pyrocynical responded. Pyrocynical addressed the document on his live stream, and damn, I made it into the fucking document. Pyrocynical was seen addressing the situation on live stream to his audience, focusing on minimal claims that aren't relevant to the allegations at all, highlighting how the document was tweeted on a burner account and that 2 tweets in replies were hidden, both extremely redundant points to highlight. However, Niall finds it important to disclose regardless to undermine the credibility of the document by sidestepping all the points highlighted inside of it and remaining vague. Pyrocynical highlights how he is pitted in a position where he will have to await other content creators' opinions on the situation before he makes a public response video on his main channel. Because he is hyper focused on public consensus now to manipulate/deal with shifting public opinion, Pyrocynical was hedging his bets on potential commentary YouTubers covering the situation to botch and misinterpret the allegations and spread misinformation, which gives him wiggle room to invalidate the entire situation based on addressing strawman points. He did this with Keemstar when he got the age incorrect, as well as Turkey Tom being speculative in his first document and the Red Kiwis comparison. Now I will attempt to discredit the allegations by lunging at the most weak points to manipulate his viewers into believing all the claims are debunked. Briefly moving away from the new additions in this document and responses, I want to quickly share something that I recently saw that was quote tweeted on Parlo's document. Somebody who was mentioned in the document put, just to clarify on this, I wasn't referencing somebody named Abortion ASMR. The person I was referencing, I think at the time, went by iFunnyMichael, but they don't even use the internet anymore. Parlo then responded by saying, "Hey, I just wanted to say the document didn't mean to conflate the two people. I believe you're referring to Abortion ASMR, as she was one of the main people who came out about the situation in 2019. I stated how what was highlighted was you referencing another victim. Sorry if that confused you." Then responded by saying, "You're good. Nah, it was my friend I was talking about. Sadly, don't have much proof, but we were talking about the person you highlighted here." The user sends a link revolving around Pyrocynical. They respond by saying, "Haha, this is too funny. I want to get involved." They respond by saying, "Do it. But my gut says no, lol." Or, "Yeah, just stay neutral." Can you reply saying that he commissioned a friend of yours? Okay. They do that, and then someone responds saying, "So you're saying there's zilch in terms of evidence, and people should just believe simply because of what someone else says, until you have sufficient evidence that these claims are bullshit and can't hold up." Leo then puts, "They want proof, help me out." The user then responds by saying, "Here's some proof. I made a 3D intro for Pyro around the time you brought up and still have the blend file and PayPal receipt." Leo responds by saying, "Wait, just give me like a link or something so I can tweet it at them." They then respond by saying, "My phone's about to die, but when I get home I can." Also, Pyro deleted his Discord, so it's even harder to find the chat. Now, the rest of the additions to this Pyrocynical document are things that I've actively critiqued Parlo for doing in the past. And that's actively engaging with Pyrocynical fans and arguing with them and going backwards and forwards with them, and now it's been included towards the end of the document, which just weakens it further because this just makes Parlo look incredibly petty. There's already some of this type of stuff in the document to begin with when it was publicly released, and I found it unnecessary then and think that's something that could 100% be trimmed down alongside the lots of other repetitive points. It's something that doesn't need to be in the document. Stuff to do with how Pyrocynical fans are responding don't need to be in there. The document should solely focus on Pyrocynical's actions, accusations, and things to do with Pyrocynical. I understand including Ida in this document. That is something that I understand. What I don't understand is going on tirades about Pyrocynical's fanbase, because ultimately that weakens the document, and I do believe that's something that Pyrocynical and others can weaponize to try and discredit Parlo's document. Like, for example, lack of critical reading skills. Members of the r/YouTube drama community have openly made it known that they will not be mature nor level-headed when it comes to digesting the information presented in this document. Instead, they remain solely reliant on members of Pyrocynical's subreddit to condense the contents inside the document and determine whether it is important information or not. This is extremely biased and extremely pathetic attempt at trying to discredit the new and now better formatted evidence provided in this document. It is a completely unnecessary inclusion in this document. There is no point bringing up how people on r/YouTube drama and r/Pyrocynical have responded. Nobody gives a fuck. People want to know about the new accusations that Pyrocynical is facing. They don't care about how other people are reacting to the situation. This is not necessary whatsoever, let alone it being being added to the official document which is posing new allegations against Pyro. Now, ladies and gentlemen, stop your viewers. I'm going to start moving on from the new additions into the document to one of the final things I want to discuss in this video. And that's a popular question that lots of people have been asking about this document, and that's if any of this has been reported to the authorities. Now, when Parlo went on Quinthio's now deleted stream, Quinthio actually asked him this exact question, and this is what Parlo had to say.
And I guess also follow-up question here. So why, if it hasn't, I haven't read this part of the document, has any of this information, any of the accusations that you're being made, specifically because a lot of it has to do with legality, has any of this been documented, reported to the police? Have the individuals, the victims that you're alleging in these situations, have they gone forward in contacting the authorities?
Abortion ASMR has already voiced out that I believe that they have reported, and Ivory has absolutely reported it to the police. He reported it back in 2020 during the height of the situation. I'm not sure anything came out of it because a lot of times with online situations, police just don't really look into it all too much and they don't take the necessary action. But Ivory has absolutely reported this to the police.
So yeah, that's what Parlo had to say to that question. I know it's a question that I've seen circulating around on the internet a lot under people's coverage in stream chats, and I wanted to put that clip out there. Parlo has also just stated I will be making a condensed version of the document and putting it on an account that will not get mass reported to immediately shut down ad hominem attempts at deflection. I have 3 20 to 50 minute videos coming out debunking many lies spread by a few stalkers. The Pyrocynical video is 1 hour 50 minutes long, and it will be impossible for people to write it off as a nothing burger or feign the loss of interest excuse, because it will be impossible to ignore it unless you are physically wanting to defend a groomer. So I guess in Pyrocynical's words, when it comes to this,
I need to now wait.
And we'll see what happens when Parlo's videos do eventually drop on the whole Pyrocynical matter.
Near future, let me just say this right now. I am calling it right now, okay? Pyrocynical is going down. Okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, slopping your viewers, welcome back to a brand new YouTube video. I hope you're having a good day, because I'm certainly not, because in today's video we're going to be talking about my concerns with the Pyrocynical situation moving forward. Because if you are unaware, about a month ago now, Parlo dropped a 300-page document on Pyrocynical going over all his accusations past and present. This document was incredibly interesting, but there was some issues within the document. For example, it was incredibly long and repetitive because Parlo wanted to get his point across, but it became very hard and difficult to read. There was also this giant focus on Parlo's fanbase and things that just shouldn't be in the document, like debunking Pyrocynical fan arguments, responding to fan claims that say it's out of context, you want clout retort, deflection, slander, and ad hominems, it's fake instant dismissal. My personal favourite one that just definitely shouldn't be in the document, and I have no idea why it is, but Parlo decides to respond to some r/YouTube drama comments in this document. Regardless, Pyrocynical did ultimately briefly respond to the document on stream.
Document that got made on me. I don't want to stream and act like, you know, nothing's happening. So obviously, if you've seen on Twitter, there is a Google Doc that's been made on me. And it was posted on a burner. We know who posted it. We know who posted it. Like, you can literally go into the hidden replies of that burner account, and you can immediately see they're hiding replies criticizing a certain YouTuber. So, but the problem is with this Google document, because a video wasn't made and it was a document, I basically need to treat this like how I treated the original response video. Because I was waiting for this document to come out. It was hyped up for 6 months.
Pyrocynical then goes on for another couple of minutes, but you get the gist. This is all stuff that we've previously covered, but now you are basically up to date and up to speed with the document, with the response. The only other thing that happened really after this was that Parlo kept updating the original document, which made it impossible for people to actually track what was going on in the situation because the document kept getting things added to. But since Pyro's response on stream, the few additions that Parlo made to his document, there has basically been 0 updates on this situation and nothing has happened with it. But Parlo recently issued some updates that have got me kind of concerned, and I want to go over them. But before we do that, if you haven't already, please consider leave a like, subscribing, and hit the notification bell. It really helps with the channel, especially if you do enjoy the content. But without further ado, let's dive into my concerns with these updates in reference to the Pyrocynical situation. Everyone important, the Pyrocynical video is almost done. What will follow are numerous videos breaking down the disgusting lies of his fanbase. I'm sorry, but why are we still focusing on Pyrocynical's fanbase? Nobody cares, focus on Pyrocynical. It was useless to put all the stuff about Pyrocynical's audience in the document. If you wanted to mention how there's kind of like a parasocial audience there that puts a stop to anybody coming out, and there's been examples of that, go ahead, but this is just unneeded. Why are we still focusing on Pyrocynical's audience when you have a 300-page document there of stuff about Pyrocynical that you can get into? Doing all of this stuff with Pyrocynical's fans was one of my original concerns several months ago. Focus should be on Pyrocynical and the current situation at hand, not his fanbase. What are you talking about making several videos going over his fanbase? It's completely unnecessary and can be easily weaponized against you because you look deranged for it. This will be done to prove to the majority of people and outsiders that Pyrocynical's fanbase will deflect, lie, victim blame, and defend predatory age gaps. You actively wanted to prove that, and that's something that you wanted to do, although I think it's pretty unnecessary. You could do that as a 2-3 minute section in one of your big giant Pyrocynical videos towards the end of the video. Why are you making numerous videos on the fanbase to prove that? Then what will follow is part 2, when I debunk the onslaught of false allegations pushed by them. I will release my second part that covers the new allegations and how Pyrocynical engaged with numerous minors. Condensed Google document will also be created. Again, numerous videos on Pyrocynical's fanbase is just completely unwarranted and is going to make you look mad. It's also going to subtract from the actual situation at hand, which is Pyrocynical, not his audience. People don't give a rat's ass about his entire audience. People want to hear about Pyrocynical and what's inside that document if they haven't already. Apollo is making this condensed document, which I have mixed feelings about. For one, it'll be easier for people to actually go over and take a look at, because hopefully he will remove all the repetitive bullshit and the stuff that people have issues with. But secondly, as well, doing several videos on Pyrocynical's fanbase, doing 2 big part videos, dropping an original 300-page document, and then another document, kind of looks like Parlo might be a little bit obsessed. It honestly just doesn't paint Parlo in the best of confidence, but ultimately I would rather there is a document out there that people can actually read. I'll make as many videos as possible to prove how stupid Pyrocynical's fanbase is. I'm sorry, but ultimately, why is that your focus? Why are you focusing on Pyrocynical's audience instead of the man himself? I think it's absolutely heinous to even consider making several videos on Pyrocynical's audience. It is bizarre to me. I honestly couldn't give a rat's ass about Pyrocynical's audience. I don't think many other people could. If you want to speak on them for about 3 minutes at most in one of your bigger videos. Why are you making numerous videos on his entire audience? That just looks absolutely mental. Makes it seem like Parlo cares more about Pyrocynical's fanbase than he does actually Pyrocynical himself. That's not true, by the way, but that's what it looks like. They will become a laughingstock, comparable to Dr. Disrespect's fanbase. They will be clowned on by the majority of people when they see the full proof displayed, when they will lose their power of harassing people into silence. Why is he talking like some villain when ultimately all you're doing is discussing the Pyrocynical fanbase? Yes, they're bad. Yes, you can have your critiques of them. Yes, you've had your run-ins with them. All you really need to say in your video is that yes, there is kind of this issue with Pyrocynical's audience, and then leave it at that. Numerous videos on that subject just doesn't need to happen whatsoever. Actually focus on the situation at hand. Also, the majority of people already know that audiences like Pyrocynical have issues. There is nothing that you gain from making several videos on them aside from going, haha, I've made videos on your audience. Pyrocynical's audience won't give a rat's ass. They're not going to go, oh yeah, now I changed my mind, if these are all the issues that you've got with them. Everyone important, this upcoming week will be used to promote and get as much attention to the Pyrocynical video as possible. It will be most likely released in 6 to 7 days if my intro editor gets his part done. It will be a premiere, meaning it will be playing live for 600,000 people to see in full. Pyrocynical fans have attempted to mass report and shut down my previous document, so my mega document will be uploaded again with more proof. Which is something he then did. He tweeted out the document yet again on his burner account with a brand new addition to the document saying that the original document got taken down. Mass reported. Pyrocynical's fans, in a drastic attempt to hide evidence and sweep denial, have mass reported the first document and got it taken down for review. This was expected and copies have been made for when they attempt to do this again. They're desperate to silence the truth. I will also be releasing a shorter, more concise document to summarize the new situation so no one can complain about it being long. I oversaw the first video today, which has been 97% edited and is 97 minutes long. It seems like this newer document, this new, more condensed, concise document, is more focused on the newer accusations and not the stuff to do with Ivory and the stuff that Parlo breaks down towards the beginning of the document. It focuses on debunking Pyrocynical's entire response video, covers how Pyro engaged with a 16-year-old when he was 20, a 16-year-old when he was 19, 15-year-old when he was 19, and dated a 14-year-old when he was 18. In between my first Pyrocynical video and second will be videos made exposing his moderators and fanbase who have defended his behaviour and have compulsively lied. Again, surely something like moderators, if you desperately wanted to talk about them, could just be put in one of those bigger Pyrocynical videos alongside stuff about his fanbase. Why be making several videos on those two things when ultimately the focus should be on Pyrocynical and his actions? We are going to apply maximum amount of pressure, more than the Pottermire situation. I need full attention when this all comes out. TLDR, the video will be most likely out in a week. We are on a warpath now. I need as much attention as the Pottermire situation received and as many people spreading this on Reddit, Twitter and YouTube. I need this to be spread to commentary YouTubers when my video is out, and I need people to clash against any Pyrocynical fan who attempts to deflect the situation with ad hominems. The second Pyrocynical video will be out 1 to 2 months after this one, depending on how long it will be, most likely also 1.5 hours long. I mean, if that is the case, if it comes out in, let's say, 2 months, like Parlo said it possibly could, then this second video would be coming out 3 months after the original document release. And then on top of all the updates that Parlo issued, he then dropped a 40-second teaser for his Pyrocynical video. Now, ultimately, I've got lots of concerns about what's going to happen going forward. Is Parlo just going to be focusing a lot on his audience? Because that's what it seems like. Numerous videos covering his audience just does not seem like a good idea in my opinion, when ultimately the focus in this situation surely should be on Pyrocynical and his potential actions, right?
Because a video wasn't made and it was a document, I basically need to treat this like how I treated the original response video.
If you've been following this situation, you would know that the commentary Roblox YouTuber Parlo released a giant document against Pyrocynical, which had some very serious accusations leveled against him. Now, there was meant to be several videos that came out alongside this document, but due to various circumstances, these videos have been delayed horrifically, and how these videos are structured has also changed a lot, with Parlo as well adding onto his workload by going after Pyrocynical's audience in several YouTube videos instead of just focusing on Pyrocynical. Of course, the focus should be on Pyrocynical as his accusations against him, not his fanbase. But we recently got an update that this Pyrocynical video, part 1, was meant to be coming out this weekend, but now it's been delayed yet again. At this point, this situation is an absolute mess, and if you want to keep up to date with it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing.